Hey guys, today we're in the book of Exodus, chapter 15. We're coming off of the crossing of the Red Sea, and today we pick up what is known as the Song of Moses, or the songs, plural, of Moses and Miriam. And we'll talk more about that as we get through. But it starts out and it says, Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to the Lord. Now, we don't exactly know how all of this came together. Jewish tradition tells us that it came to them spontaneously, that all of a sudden 2 million people started singing this song, this praise. Now, we don't know if that's true. The Spirit of God can do anything, especially when they have a heart to worship, but it doesn't matter, right? So they're coming off of a win of leaving Egypt being swallowed in the Reed Sea, and now they're going to worship God. And so in these 18 verses are really 5 different stanzas. Just as we have stanzas of songs, of hymns, there's 5 different stanzas, and those can be divided by kind of what each stanza is talking about. The first stanza is verses 1 through 5. And it says, I will sing to the Lord, I will worship. The horse and the rider, Pharaoh, Egypt, was thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. When I let the Lord be my strength, he will be my victory. That's what it means, strength and song. And he has become my salvation. Salvation is only of God. Right? See, they understood that they are only released because of the powers of God. And this is my God, and I will praise him. In the Hebrew, I will praise him. It doesn't say praise him. It actually says, I will decorate him. It's the idea that God is a warrior, and they're putting ribbons and medals and pins on him, telling the world how great he is. I will decorate him. I will praise him. The Lord is a man of war. The Lord is a warrior. And that's kind of the thought process of the first stanza. The second stanza is verses 14 through 16. The peoples have heard, they have trembled. Pangs have seized the inhabitants of Philistia. The chiefs of Edom, the leaders of Moab, and all the inhabitants of Canaan have melted away. Terror and dread fall upon them. If you are thinking about the idea of what they're talking about, let's say this Bible is Israel. It says that the leaders of Philistia are scared. This is on the western bank by the Mediterranean Sea. It says that the leaders of Edom, which is this area, it's the east side of the promised land. Moab, which is the north side, the northeast side of, and then Canaan would be all of Israel, right? So basically what he's saying is that all of the promised land, both on the west and on the east bank of the Jordan, are scared and fearful. And when you read this, I hope you kind of thought of this, when it says that they have melted away. Have we heard that before? On Sunday mornings at Green Acres, we're walking through the book of Joshua. And you remember when the spies go into Jericho, they meet a prostitute, and this prostitute's name is Rahab. And Rahab tells him that all the hearts have melted away because of what they heard of the crossing of the Reed Sea and of the of taking over the kings of Sihon and Og, right? And so she uses this language, have melted away. We have this language 40 years prior to Rahab. And so here, all of Israel is singing, the promised land has melted away. Terror and dreadful fall upon them. Once again, these are words of Rahab that we see in the book of Joshua in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 9, right? So you start to see, right? These words happen very often. Verses 17 and 18 are the third stanza. And the third stanza is talking about that God will bring them in and plant them on your own mountain, a place, O Lord, that you have made your abode, your sanctuary, and the Lord will reign forever and ever. Now, I know when you read this and it talks of mountain, you might think Sinai. They don't know that they're going to Sinai yet, right? They're just wondering. They have no idea where God's taking them. They are prophetically looking forward and saying they know that God, Yahweh, the God of the universe, sits on a mountain. We will later know that that mountain is called Zion or Jerusalem or the Temple Mount, to be very specific, in Jerusalem, where they will build the temple in which God will inhabit and reign. And so this is a prophecy of something that is to come that the Hebrews have no idea about, right? But they understand that the God of the universe would have a place to be worshiped and it would be high on a mountain. They just don't know that it's going to be Mount Zion in Jerusalem in the promised land that they will inhabit in about 40 years. Verses, let's see, then we kind of end in this idea. And then it says, verse starting in 19, when the horses of Pharaoh and his chariots, they all go into the sea. Verse 20, then Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand. This is the first time that we see Miriam by her name. Okay, she's just been the sister of Aaron. Now remember, because she's the sister of Aaron, that also means that she is the sister of Moses. Okay, so just connect those, right? Aaron and Moses are brothers, and so their sister Miriam, first time we see her name, and she is a prophetess. She has a spiritual gift of prophecy that God has given her. And what does she do? She leads the women in a song to sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously, the horse and the rider into the sea, right? So the men were singing, the women were singing, this is a good time. Verse 22, then Moses made Israel set out from the Reed Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. This is out in the middle of no man's land, right? Not near any trade routes where they would come in contact with anybody. And they went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. Notice once again, 3 days. That's as long as the body can go without water. They've walked 3 days out into the desert and there is no water. Surely they're going to die. But what happens when they came to Marah, that's how you pronounce it, Marah. Marah is a Hebrew word that means bitter. They came to a place called Bitter and they found water, but they couldn't drink it because the water was bitter, right? So imagine that. It's kind of like a bad joke, right? A bad dream. They were thirsty, almost to die. They come to water, but they can't drink it. Verse 25, Moses cried to the Lord. He cried out to the Lord. Once again, it just shows you that Moses is a real man, right? Moses had just parted the Reed Sea with his staff. He could have surely touched the waters of Marah. He could have stirred them up. He could have done anything. The power of God was given, but Moses still did not have full faith in his own abilities that God gave him, right? And to his staff. So he cries out to God, and God shows him, it says in our English, a log. In the Hebrew, it says a tree, okay? Whether it's a tree that's living or a tree that is dead, we don't know. Really doesn't matter, but they threw it into the water and the water became sweet. Now, here's what's interesting, and I don't have a lot of time, but why was the water bitter? The water was bitter because it's in the desert, and it was bitter because it was full of two things, magnesium and calcium. That doesn't mean much to you, but it does mean something important. Water that is full of magnesium and calcium becomes X-lax. Okay, so they're going to drink this water and it's going to purify them. It's going to clean them out. It's going to get them rid of everything that they had in Egypt, including the sicknesses and the diseases of eating as slaves for their whole life. So it's going to purify them, but also In small doses today, you can buy pouches of magnesium and calcium to put in your water, and it is a athletic enhancer in small doses. So God is purifying them, but also getting them ready. He's getting them ready because they're going to continue to walk in the desert. Okay, and there's a lot more there. I just don't have time to talk about it. And so there. There's water that's sweet, they can make them, and there the Lord gave them a statute and a rule, and there he tested them. As Christians, we think that God should just give us everything, but God is always testing us. He is not tempting us to do wrong, but he is testing us because it is through testing in which we see our obedience, and it causes our faith to grow. Right? So God is testing them so that they would see their obedience and that their faith would grow into God, that they would be more faithful followers of a God who is leading them out into the middle of nowhere. And so faith was important. And he said, here's the deal. You keep these commandments, and I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer. No, we haven't got there yet. We're getting close, but a lot of the rules and a lot of the laws of God when it comes to eating and drinking were almost always about the health and the hygiene of the Hebrew people, of the Israel, okay? And so God says, hey, I have sent plagues, not just the 10 plagues, but in Egypt, they've had diseases and famine and all of these things. But if you are faithful to me, Israel, I will be your doctor. I will be the Lord your healer. In the Hebrew, it says, I will be the Yahweh Rapha. I will be the God who heals. Okay. And so God is saying, if you keep my commandments, I will keep you. I will protect you. I will put my hands of protection around you. And then they came to Elim, where there was 12 springs of water, 70 palm trees, which would have given food, dates, lots of other things, and they encamped there by the water. So they come to a place of bitterness. God purifies them. He sustains them there, and then he's going to test them, but then he moves them on to a place where there are 12 springs for each tribe, plenty of water, plenty of shade, plenty of food, a place where they can take a moment to rest and to relax before God continues to move them forward. You might ask yourself, where's Jesus in all of this? Well, when we think of God and we think of him in the Song of Moses, that he is triumphal, he is the strength, he is the song, these are the same for Jesus, right? Jesus is our advocate. He is our shield. Like we talked about yesterday, he doesn't say that he will remove us from the bad places. He says that he will be with us. And as Jesus talked about that he was the shepherd, right? The shepherd is always with the sheep as they're moving up and down, where there's good pasture, bad pasture, where there's enemies, but the shepherd is always with us. And here we see God being the shepherd of Israel during this time. Hope that makes sense, and we will see you tomorrow in Exodus chapter 16. God bless.